first generation Haitian American, born and raised in South Florida. I graduated from Dillon High School, joined the Air Force right out of high school. Stationed in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is in Dayton, Ohio. Was security forces for the Air Force, so it's like the military police. From there, I graduated with from the Community College of the Air Force with my associate's in criminal justice before transferring to FIU. I did my undergrad there and got my bachelor's in public administration and certificates in public policy and national security studies, and then did a combined degree program and got into the MPA program, where I'm also doing a concentration in Homeland Security.
Okay, and can you tell me a bit about your internship at the GAO, and what is the GAO? Because I'm very familiar with it, but I know a lot of people aren't.
Just to put it in a nutshell, they refer to themselves as like the watchdog. So they kind of do everything from audits, program evaluations, program assessments, legal decisions, and respond to queries. So if members of Congress would like them to look at a particular issue, then GAO would do that, gather the data, do field visits, and they come back to give their testimonies to Congress. So it's kind of like, official government program evaluators or assessors. Stop. Come here.
Got it. And what exactly are you working on and tackling at the GAO?
So I'm assigned to the Human Capital Office and then the Recruitment Program Office. Management Program Analyst, so majority of my time is spent on recruitment efforts. So we don't have actual recruiters in the office. So we rely on the 11 field offices and respective graduates who kind of have relationships with their previous other universities they graduated from. So we strategize on, universities to advertise at, to target different forms of communications, capstone projects that are taking place. And then one of my primary focuses is identifying out of all the interns, past and present, recent hires who are previous interns, what university do they attend? Is it a HIS? Is it HBCU? Is it a Park University? That way, we kind of prioritize our recommendations moving forward. So that's, and then also, as you can see, we also help with school visits. So when FIU visit Cornell or American universities, then we kind of talk to them about that and find other ways of kind of targeting millennials and Generation Z based on what they prefer out of the workplace.
Something that I've always found interesting particularly is that you work for the Government Accountability Office, but you handle a lot of inclusivity and diversity actions.
Yes.
How did you make that connection? Because I know that you were up in DC for a fly-in, and yes. I'm going to assume that's how you got introduced to GAO?
Yes, that is correct.
And did they tell you during that time what opportunities they had? How did you land this particular internship?
So we did the 3-day fly-in, which involved us going to various agencies. So GA was the first one, HHS, DOS, USAID, and probably 2 or 3 more. So of course, when you go to all these agencies as a fly-in, they tell you about, their internship programs, their hiring programs. So we talked about that, but never in a sense of assuming that you'll get into the agency, because most of us, even though we come part of the fly-in, don't do that. So the way I got involved in diversity, well, I think when we left DC, a lot of agencies said to us, hey, this is kind of our hiring window, or you can expect future announcements to come out. And from there, in tips, of course, that they share with us, how to tailor your resume, how to do this, how to do that, what they look for. And then a lot of us who want to go to DC, we kind of wait for the announcements. We tailor the resume just like they say. And then, from there, the goal is to get the internship. I think it's more easier once you understand what's the agency looking for. I was able to, the diversity aspect came from the recruitment angle. Over 50% of GAO employees have either a master's or PhD program. But as you probably aware that a lot of people of color can't afford to go to graduate school. So if you want a more diverse group of employees, then you have to kind of consider your hiring mechanisms. So if you want more people of color, then you can't always look at people in grad school because you might not find a large population of people of color or women or demographics like that. So it's kind of like how diversity affects recruitment efforts. So that's how that piece come in. I'm not advertising, but trying to show that GAO is an organization that accepts all walks of life and kind of like let people know like we have groups for women, people of color, Hispanics have their own affinity group. Asian Americans, LGBTQ, they have two affinity groups, Blacks in government, people with disability, veterans. So to kind of say to young people, hey, we recognize that you want an organization that reflects diversity, which, Forbes listed that one of the top priorities of our Generation Z. So connecting the diversity aspect to the recruitment aspect. And that's, and a lot of people of color don't always study like public policy or like public administration. So it's kind of like, hey, we also have to consider what type of degrees we want, people to have. If we only look for those two type of policies, then we may not always find, a person of color or a woman. Sometimes you have to consider like, liberal arts or like accounting, other general degrees as part of your recruitment efforts. So that's how the two came to mingle.
I find it interesting that you brought that up, like coming from a Hispanic serving institution and being a person of color yourself. Do you feel like that really molded kind of what you wanted to do? I don't know if you see this as a career, but do you think that that's in your future?
Well, interestingly, I didn't study, well, as you can see, I didn't study HR, even though I took HR courses. I think that coming to GAO changed my perspective dramatically because, a person of color from a Hispanic serving institution, you don't really think like this, diversity is a real thing. So you don't really, how many of us who are people of person of color from an HBCU or a university like FIU actually focus on learning diversity efforts because the campus itself is diverse, your neighborhood, is diverse. So you don't really think about those aspects. So now here you are coming to DC, which, as you can see, FIU is trying to build the level of diversity up there in the amount of students, but, predominantly Caucasians are, the interns or people who come from more wealthy homes or, Ivy Leagues, universities. So, it brings you a different point of perspective because now you recognize, hey, diversity is actual, it's actual thing. And then another thing about GAO, diversity is not just based off, race and gender. Are there enough people with, do you allow people with disabilities equal opportunity? Do you allow, veterans equal opportunity? Are you allowing people with different academic backgrounds, opportunities? So it kind of like expanded of what diversity is. In terms of long-term projection, I'm not sure. I think anything's up in the air. But I just know that for me, it's all about public service and serving, our community in any way, shape, or form, or fashion. And that's why I was more than willing and glad to be able to do that fly-in. And I hope to, in any shape or way, facilitate more GAO collaboration with FIU to make sure that the pipeline of diverse candidates or whoever wants to come to DC is to have the opportunity and learns how to make it to DC.
Yeah, of course. I want to thank you for helping us, especially 2 weeks ago, you were a really big proponent in putting together a panel with GAO for our Defense and National Security fly-in seminar. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Shifting over a little bit, how has this pandemic affected your work?
Well, it affected me both academically and professionally. Academically, emphasis on homeland security. So it's kind of just observing how um, important it is to be prepared, and knowing that sometimes preparedness involves you questioning your capabilities and for a variety of things. You know, we in South Florida, we're accustomed to like hurricanes, so we have that down packed, what to do, when to do, and how to do it. But now we're facing something the world has never seen before in terms of homeland security, economics, and employment. So we learn that aspect from GAO, from work. So interns are not allowed to telework because they want us to gain that experience of being in the office, working together with other interns, PD peers, and professional staff. And some of us, interns get to do field work. Some of us get to go on the Hill to participate in testimonies, and to other agencies to participate in what we call other surveys. So towards the end, access to the Hill got, at this point is very limited, and the buildings within all of those offices has been shut down, so we don't have access to those. And we are reverted to teleworking, so that that's been a challenge. So everyone is teleworking at GAO and on conference calls. So for the most part, it's business as usual. But I'm also part of the community practice for emergency management. So we get the constant updates of what's taking place in Washington D.C. in terms of alerts, activations of the National Guard, and discussion around like certain presidential directives and executive orders that have been made in the past few weeks. So you're kind of learning the full scale of what happens behind the scenes in government, and being able to live it on the front side and the back side now. So it's an interesting experience.
And you told me that you're back in Miami now?
Yes, I am back in Miami at this period in time. So of course, no one knows. Well, I'm not quite sure when I'll be going back to DC relatively soon. We're just kind of waiting on, how it all plays out, pretty much.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for being interviewed, taking time out of your workday to do this.